I think this is a great conversation just talking about like when to trust your instincts. And like, this is a
Hmm.
perfect example, Adrian, of you being very in touch with, okay, my instinct and my intuition is telling me these are not my people. I cannot work with these people, obviously. But it's hard, I think, especially for designers who are listening, who are just starting out or architects who are just starting out, because
Hmm.
you want to take on every single project and you tend to ignore the red flags. And it's interesting
Yeah.
you say this story right now because literally this week at time of recording, I just said no to a really big project. And when you were like, I feel like it's not the right fit, but I'm gonna go to the house. Then you're walking through the house and the husband's like, oh no, whatever, don't worry about what she says. Like, we want to spend whatever it's gonna take to do whatever we need to do. And then, the wife's saying, talking about the deal here, the thing there, and like, well, the timeline, even though I'm very clear, we can't start until March. And then in the follow up, I thought to myself, I'm going to put a proposal together, but I don't think this is the right job. So I'm going to go high. And I did. And it was met with, okay, it's a good number, but timeline, but this, that, and the other. And I just turned to my associate and I was like, no, this is not the job for us. She is going to be a very difficult person to work with. And it doesn't matter how much money they're going to throw at us, it's going to send our entire firm into a tizzy. And
Hmm.
I sent her
Yeah.
an email and I referred her to another designer. I said, it's just not the right fit and sent her on her way. And she said, thank you. And I was very proud of myself because making these types of decisions that come naturally to you, Adrian, for me, they've been hard historically, like trusting your intuition and recognizing red flags when you see them
Mm. I
and not
think,
ignoring them.
on that part, we're designers, so we're problem solvers. And so we just see it as another problem to overcome. Believe me, I've been in plenty where I've gone, why did I do this?
Oh, yeah.
Um, and we see it as a problem to overcome, just like we do when, the climate doesn't match, or they've got one mid-century modern piece and they've got one Victorian and they've got to sit beside each other. And we go, oh, what am I? How
No,
how do I, yeah, yeah. Can we
no,
separate the rooms at least? Yeah.
two different houses.
Yeah. What do we do with that? And we problem solve it. We work out ways
Hmm.
of making these things real.
Yeah.
But sometimes we problem solve so well that we end up sacrificing our own, whether it's not necessarily our integrity, but it's our own mental energy too, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You have to, your
Yeah.
time and your mental health has a lot to do with it as well. It might be a good sized job or a good paycheck, but at the end of the day, I think that's something good that came out of COVID. We kind of concentrate more on our mental health, not just in personally, but business wise too. You
Yeah.
can't take on a client that's going to make you hate going to work every day or hate to work with them.
Yep. I'm 100% on that one. I think COVID actually created an awareness there.
I did.
It shifted it.
I thought you
It
were going to
really.
say something else. COVID created some monster clients because there's a lot of stuff that's come out after COVID where people they're not as healthy mentally, right? And all of
No.
us,
Yeah.
we're still, I think, I don't know. How do you think it has changed the design industry where you are, like Eric and Adrian, coming out now? It feels like we're way past the tail end of COVID-19 and the pandemic. It's been a couple of years. Like, how do you think it's affected the industry? Has it left a lasting impression, do you think, or are we right back to the way things were?
Go,
Um,
Eric.
I think so. For a while there, we all had the lead time issues and like the delays in jobs. And I think in a certain way, it kind of helped us now that it's easier to win it over a job because you're saying, oh, the lead time's, 6 to 8 weeks instead of, 6 months. So it has helped us in that way. And it has made some homeowners a little bit more patient because now that they know that they could actually get it in a reasonable time. But also, it has helped in a way because people are more living in their homes now.
Hmm.
They've realized that even though they could go out now, they've noticed they save so much money during those couple of years staying at home and realizing what they have and with family and with their at-home presence that they want to remodel. So I think that's a good thing. But in other ways, it has ruined material wise and all kinds of other stuff just because people are more set, I think now are more penny pinching than ever.
Yeah, I would agree with that. People are being very careful with their money, because of interest rates mainly, I think.
Yeah.
And, all our governments are jacking interest rates. And in doing that, they're trying to slow down a runaway train economy. You think if we were in the third world, we would have just had disaster, and we'd still be in disaster to some degree with economies, because, a lot of the third world is where we would go and, when I say third world, that's probably a little bit extreme, but, we might fly to Thailand, or we might fly to the Philippines, or we might fly to, Vietnam or something, where their economies aren't as robust as, say, Australia or America and Canada. But they also didn't get big COVID handouts or paychecks from the government and all the rest, which people either saved or spent. And the idea is they spent them and it kept the economy moving. So I think what's happened is that, there was that initial containment. Think of this in architectural terms. Frank Lloyd Wright, compression at the entry and then release as you go into the space. So we had compression because we were compressed into our homes and into our local communities, and then it was release back into the world, but with some intrepidation as well. A lot of people were scared to travel straight up. And not only that, we were medicated as well along the way, like it's like we were given the medication and all these things. So all of those things were things that our generation, being even probably our parents' generations, never have experienced in their lives.
Yeah.
None of those factors. So there's no sort of background to it. People suddenly realize that their homes, aren't really designed for being at home and schooling their kids, and two people trying to work at home. Back when the Spanish flu happened, people lived in one room, maybe two. Now we're talking about people live in multi-dimensional homes with all these different rooms, but they still weren't designed to have a schoolroom in the kitchen usually, or in that dining area, and then somebody at home trying to keep their business going, or working for a corporation and trying to keep that going, and then somebody else probably working as well and trying to make all these things dynamically happen with technology. We're on Zoom now. Think of what Zoom, how it grew and what it managed to do through COVID. I mean, they'll go back through their business case study and go, oh, there's COVID. And we never look back. And they've improved it. So when you look at those things, think of podcasting. It suddenly was an outline out, it was a line out to the world, where podcasters were all around the world telling stories, meeting people, doing things. It exploded in that time as well. And then biophilic design, we had it touching anyway, but go back to really the 60s, 70s, where mid-century modern brought a lot of planting indoors, and the Victorians and stuff like that did that as well. That different motivations, like when you were back in sort of the Victorian or Georgian era and those things, that meant, and older, meant that you had the ability to travel and bring exotic plants back. And often the captains of industry would be, and the kings and queens would be bringing those species back, not because they just look pretty, but because what did they offer in an economic value? Think of the spice trade and all those things. So this was a sign of wealth. And so those people would have exotic plants in their homes because it was a sign of wealth. Little did they know that that was biophilic design, and that was actually cognitively growing them as people. And they'd have greenhouses and glass houses and things like that, conservatories with these different plants in them. Then come forward the 60s with mid-century, or anywhere really from probably late 30s through to the 60s and maybe early 70s, then we had this mid-century modern style of design that evolved through that time. And that often had planting in it. You know, Eric, you were recently just at Falling in it. You know, Eric, you were recently just at Falling Water. You know, Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water. And you see, like, he's got the stones from outside, inside. He's got damn stalagmites or stalagmites, yeah, dripping in that little entry piece, you know, where the water actually comes into the house and then makes that little pondy bit and then goes again. He had the waterfall, the swimming pool at the bottom of the stairs so that you could always use Bear Run Creek. He brought all those elements in to the house as well and really connected it with nature. And that's 38, was it? 36, 38, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Go through to sort of the 60s and 70s where we had 2-story homes and we had underneath the staircase, which would be an open staircase, we would have a garden sitting there, probably with a pond, you know. This was that Californian style.
Yeah.
And then right when we got COVID, people there, especially people in apartments and things like that, they suddenly were like missing nature. They suddenly, you know, you made the point before, Eric, about how that their houses weren't giving them everything. And so now they're going, what more could I do for my house? And, you know, look at you, Rebecca, sitting there with a big, you know, green plant behind you, you know, bringing nature into our environment. And it's cognitively really good for us. It works. This whole study, which I think it was about 86 or something, they named it biophilic design. But the whole study around classrooms and all those things, how it lifts your game and mentally, and office spaces and all that. Now we're going, do we do a design without a tree inside the house, or, you know, or at least planting? We don't.
I mean, here we do, because the plants, it's hard to keep them alive.
Yeah.
But I love that. I do. I really love that.
I think, you know, like COVID actually gave us more and more opportunity to do that. And you do know this, Rebecca, you know, you can use, so for listeners, you can use plastic plants, guys. You buy a better end if you could, that would be nice. But you can use plastic plants. And, you know, if you've got, say, a ceiling fan or something like that, that makes them move as well, cognitively, your brain is getting more stimulation because of the movement, and it thinks it's more natural. You're the guy who bought the plant. You know it's plastic or fake. It doesn't change it. It's still, your brain is tricked into feeling that that piece of nature is there. If you can, you know, as the day changes, the light changes against that plant, if you've got an open window or if you've got a fan going in its closed windows, then if that plant's moving slightly, it's replicating nature. We're smart people, but we're not that smart. Our brain will accept that as being part of it. So I find it fascinating. You know, this is, we can do it with fake plants as well as we can do it with real plants.
Mm-hmm.
So you heard it here first, designers. You need to convince all your clients to bring in all their green thumbs or some really good fake plants. But the real deal is just so much better. So much.
The real deal is, and the real deal takes you another step as well.
Yeah.
Because especially if you say it's a herb garden or something, if you can do that, it takes you another step because you actually have to nurture. And so your mental capacity shifts again to nurture, because you've got to keep those things alive. And it takes a discipline, it takes nurturing. I think that's another point that, you know, we miss. And King Charles, so what used to be Prince Charles, the ruler of England, King Charles is very well known for his gardening. And he's, you know, like really, really well known for his love of plants and his love of gardening. And he talks to his plants. He got lambasted in the press, you know, years ago for talking to his plants. Do you know, plants actually respond to love and to being spoken to. They actually respond.
Heard that. I have heard that. I don't have a green thumb, though. I do feel like one day I will get into gardening because I love nature. I think that's cool. I did not know that about the king. Did you know that, Eric?
No, I did not know that. And I'm not an indoor plant person. I only have fake plants just because I can't keep them alive.
Yeah.
Good call. Yeah. So have fake.
Yeah.
Did you guys also see, I mean, here in Toronto, because I'm in a big city, what happened, you know, sort of during the pandemic, and even as it sort of was, things were opening up, people moving, like leaving the city, moving to the country, moving to smaller towns, partially because they could obviously work from Zoom. But I really do think it likely has to do with that, what you're saying, Adrian, which is that like that desire for nature, being closer to it. And what we've seen, at least I've seen in my design firm and in my city, is more of the glazing, more glass, more windows. How can we bring the outdoors in? How can we see the backyard? How can I bring that in? If I can't physically design with a tree in my house the way they do down under, let's bring the visual of it in. And I think that's like something that I hope stays.
Yeah.
Because like to your point, we need that as humans.
We do. It feeds us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still dreaming of moving to the country, but I'm not.
Oh, same. But even with our finishes, everything's become natural. Everything was painted before COVID. And it's still very much like kitchens are very, at least in the US, are painted white cabinets. But I feel like there's a lot of natural finished wood coming through now with all the materials. And even like stone is coming back. And even though some vinyl or, fake engineered stuff, but even it's still bringing the life back into a home without it being so sterile.
100%
I've noticed
agree.
like we've had clients specifically asking for wood.
Yeah.
They want the durability. They're like, I don't want those painted kitchens, because they became so popular that, everybody and their brother was making a kitchen and the quality was not equal. Right. And so now you're seeing all these painted MDF kitchens, at least here, that are chipping and they're I won't swear on your podcast, apologies. And they're crummy quality. Right. And you're right, Eric. Like that is the shift that I'm seeing. Absolutely. Especially with decor. I mean, I do a lot of decorating and I love to work with materials and fabrics and furnishings. And the shift is to the natural, the jute rug. Right. But also moody. I don't know if you're seeing that down south, but like that moody, dark feeling. It just feels like a warm hug.
Yeah, right? Like a cave. It's around you. It's got an intimacy.
Yeah. And when I moved to my house, I have a lot of black walls, like the one behind me. And a lot of people are like, you're crazy. Why would you put black walls? And they come in, they're like, oh, I understand this now. It's more inviting. It's less, again, sterile. And it just gives you, like Rebecca said, it's like a hug. It's just so warm and moody and just feels homey.
I totally agree. And I know it's trend, like trend drives these things.
Yeah.
What it also does, though, is it evokes another emotion. And, so like, again, if we go back to the emotional floor plan, color is a part of emotion. It does things for us, like, I was going to say a good friend of mine, Deb De Jong, she's very big on color. And she always says, you don't want to put too much red in the kitchen because it makes you hot and horny, which is not a bad thing in the kitchen either. But like, it's like, if you look at these things, these colors have actual psychological points that shift us. And so these things like our dark walls, whether they're very dark greens or whether they're very dark blues, maybe even super dark reds and black and dark charcoals and things, these earth us in some way. And so if you've got a client who is, I'll take myself as an example. I'm highly strung, I'm ADHD. I'm highly strung. My feet aren't very on the ground. I'm not very grounded. And so I'm always looking for grounded environments because it holds me in place. It gives me security. It gives me surety. We have in my home, we have a very open bedroom to the north, which is the same for you guys being to the south. So that's where our sun, the north is our best aspect. And we have a beautiful long view and all those things, but we have one black wall in our bedroom. And I remember my wife saying to me, black? And I'm like, trust me, babe, it'll work. And she's like, I don't trust you, and I'm not sure it will work. However, we did overcome. I think I just painted it when she was out for a weekend. She was on a girls' trip. So I just went, screw that, I'll get it done. But we have this black wall, and it's on the side, my side of the bed. Traditionally we have sides of the bed, and mine's on the black wall's on that side, and it has a beautiful old wooden cabinet against it, and then it's also got quite a bit of art on that wall. And again, this is these things, so that art tells me a story, and it hopefully tells my wife a story. Yet we don't want busyness in that room because it's a room of settling down and relaxing. It's not a room of like busyness, it's like we sleep there. It's more intimate as a room. And that dark wall drags us into that space. We have another room, or another piece of a room off our living room, which is a very dark blue. And that is where, and it's got big windows, but that is where our TV is. And it's like our TV's like in a snug, and we have a dark blue, sort of like a deep denim looking, washed looking sofa in there as well. And it's not a big space because we're not big TV people, but that's it. We've got a, coffee table and stuff, and we've got a beautiful view out to a garden, and then it's off the side of our main living room. But again, it's a total mood shift under the same roof line. Nothing else changes. Just all of a sudden you go, and you get in there, and it's like got soft curtains behind you and stuff. And it just all kind of brings you down.
Yeah.
It's like
a hug.
Yeah,
exactly. We did the same thing with our living room. We renovated. I was like, this is a dark room. It faces north. So for you, it'd be your south.
Yeah.
It has a porch and it's dark anyway. Everyone was like, you're crazy. Why are you going to paint it a dark color? It's such a dark room. I'm like, look, the off-white's not doing it any good that it already is. Let's do it. And every single human who walks into my house says, wow, I love the feeling. I love how it feels. It feels so cozy. It feels so like, wow, elegant and intimate. And I'm like, see, told you so. We got to sometimes stand up to our designs. The way Adrian painted the black wall when his wife was out of town. My mother-in-law did that when my father-in-law was out of town. She painted the whole house.
Well, usually it's the woman that takes an action like that. It's not usually the man. Probably because they know the consequences of doing things like that. I could have found myself, there in my underpants painting it all night long with her sleeping in the other room saying, I'm not coming back until that's fixed.
That's fair. That's true. Oh my goodness.
I prevailed. And
I was going to say, since COVID, Rebecca, have you seen with your coaching business, a change in designers or change in struggles with a designer based off of COVID or post-COVID?
That's a great question. No one has asked me that. I can tell you the first observation that came to my mind when you asked that question was what I have seen is so many more designers.
Oh, yeah.
So, right? So it's funny because there's always been a lot of us, but I think what happened is, the pandemic, everybody and their mother wanted to hire a designer. Everybody wanted to remodel. Everybody wanted to move and build. Everybody wanted to redecorate, paint, you name it. Like people were ready for change, sick of their homes. Like Adrian said, it's not working as a home school. It's not working as a home office. Like help, I need to move. I need to upsize. I need to whatever. And so there was so much work to be had. And it was like anyone who had a desire to maybe one day I'll be a designer. I don't know. They started helping family and friends or working. And it's been a beautiful thing actually to see so many creatives get this opportunity to try it out and test it. And there's a lot of designers listening right now who are like, yep, that's me. And so it's a beautiful thing. But then what I'm seeing now is some designers who just got started, and oh man, it's tough when you're just starting out, right? They just got started and they started in a boom time. It's like being a real estate agent when the market's booming and you start your business. You're like, oh, this is amazing.
You can't do wrong. Yeah,
I'm going to hire, right? Like boom, boom, boom. And you are good at what you do, but then all of a sudden there's less work, there's less demand. And so what I'm seeing now, Eric, is like designers, decorators who have just started out are feeling it more than maybe someone who's more established because they don't have the track record. They don't have the referral source. They don't have those raving fan clients yet. I think they can get there, but it's a shift. And so for me, I'm like, oh yeah, we're kind of settling back into the way things were before the pandemic, right? Where I wasn't getting, like before the pandemic, I didn't get 10 inquiries a week. Like that's just bananas. But there was a period of time in 2021 where like the phone was ringing. Wasn't the phone, it was email, but the expression, the phone was ringing off the hook. Now, not all projects turned into projects or not all inquiries, but that's one thing that I've seen since the pandemic is designers all of a sudden saying like, oh gosh, there isn't all that work. But I also think that designers who are coming through the other side of the pandemic have been able to really figure out their niche.
I was
And I
about
think
to ask this. Yay.
yeah, right. Like it's because I think that when you get lots of work and you're doing lots of things, that's when you can start to get more selective and you can get a little bit clearer. And there's so many courses online now that you can take. I mean, mine being one of them, of course. You should all take Power of Process,
That's
but
it.
there are so many courses like Darla Powell. I don't know if you know her of Wingnut Social podcast. She has an Instagram course for interior designers, and like there's so many tools that you can take that will help you elevate. It's amazing. I had a call. I have this membership. This community is called Designers Room, and we had a Zoom call. It was just a couple of days ago, and one of the girls was sharing her like documents that she uses internally with her clients, and when people were checking out her Instagram, and I was like, oh my God, everything is so beautiful and so professional. And she's like, yeah, I just launched my business 3 months ago. And it really got me thinking about how technology through the pandemic and now with AI, and we can talk about that if you want. I think that actually would be a really interesting
Yeah,
topic.
a good subject.
How it's really given people an opportunity to have a leg up and to leverage. And if you're clever and if you're smart and if you take the courses and if you join my membership and if and if you get in front of the education and the technology, you can elevate and you can start to attract clients. This particular person already has new build clients. Shit, it took me 10 years to get that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do think things have shifted quite a bit, and I am seeing that inside my community. And the designers listening to this podcast, some of them listening right now are maybe haven't started their career yet. Like they're on the fence and maybe they want to start a business, or maybe they've been doing it for 20 years and they're seeing these newbies come up and they're like, how do I stay competitive? Like it's become a little bit, though we're not each other's competition. I really do believe we are not. It has become, the landscape has changed. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So especially with the digital media part. I mean, I've met so many. I grew fast on social media and I meet designers all the time, which I've helped with their social presence on social media. And that's their biggest struggle is competing with the newer people because the newer people are getting these great opportunities because they're seen. And a lot of people are using these social medias as a search engine now. So if you're not on it, you could have years and years of experience. But if you're someone new to town and you're looking for an interior designer, you're going to Google, Toronto.
Hashtag interior designer.
Exactly. And that's a struggle with a lot of people. You could be amazing as an interior designer, be CKB, all that certifications, but doesn't mean a lot to the people that like my generation. I'm looking on social media before I hire someone. I'm doing a whole background check.
I always say it doesn't matter how good you are if nobody knows you exist.
Yeah.
Regardless of your profession.
If you're a well-hidden secret, you're still a secret. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember a friend of mine who ran a very successful model agency, and we were talking about, when you have model agencies for kids, and I said, so how do you handle that? Because, there's too much stuff that goes on. And she's like, and parents are really worried about their children being online and stuff. And she said to me, well, exactly that. If you hide them, then they're not going to work. So you have to just rely on the integrity of and having a social presence it's super important to have some sense of social presence. And a lot of the time it's going to be people getting out of their comfort zone. Like you would know now, Reels is the fastest way to get not social proof, to get followers and to engage people on, say, Instagram. And with that, if it's Reels, then people have got to have content to make and talk about things and be available to talk about things. And so having a coach of some kind, that goes, hey, here's some subject matter. Here's how to set yourself up. Here's how to do it. And whilst that sounds like really goofy, it should be that simple that you just do it in your day to day. But if you don't make time for it, and B, if you don't know what you're going to talk about and actually come across giving value, you've either got to do that or you've got to, jump off a building in your underwear or something so that people will watch it.
Which we do not advise.
No.
Yeah.
do not advise.
Yeah. Don't try that at home.
You'll be on
Don't
TikTok.
try that out.
You'll be trending on TikTok. That's not the way you want to be famous.
Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed part 2 of this podcast. It's such a fun thing, podcasting, because I get to interview such interesting people and have these conversations with people who are all over the world that I otherwise wouldn't get to have. Like, it's super cool. And you guys get to listen and be a fly on the wall. And of course, if you want to listen to part 3, which you're going to want to, you need to now head on over to Eric's podcast. His podcast is called the Pro Series Podcast. You can get it wherever you're listening to this one. So again, part 1 was on Adrian Ramsay's podcast, which is called Talk Design. This was part 2. And then part 3, which is the last part of our conversation, which is really good and juicy, is on Eric Dillman's podcast, Pro Series. So head on over to Pro Series Podcast so you can catch the end of our conversation. I really love... I just love that we can talk about so many different areas, and we all live in different cities. Like, it's so crazy and it's so bananas. And I hope that if you're listening, this is a great reminder for you that we can all connect and we can all work together. And there's so much power in that collaboration over competition, which I hope I'm exemplifying this week by doing this global sharing of podcasts and sending people to all the different podcasts. We are not in competition. We all have something unique to offer. And I just hope you can remind yourself of that as you listen to this episode. Thanks for listening. Head on over if you enjoyed this. Go on over to part 3 and we'll see you soon.